Good evening, folks. Are you ready for some smack talk? Are you ready for the 2-minute drill? Are you ready for the top 5 and bottom 5 performers of today's NFL weekend? As you know, I'm Jeff. Our panel is missing our original host, Mike, this week, but at least we still got Mike and we still got JR. Questions. Let's get right to it. No gimmicks, the 2-minute drill. You guys already know what it's all about. I'm going to start off with the Chargers and the Jets. Rex Ryan, no doubt, trying to spark some bad blood between his Jets and the Chargers, bringing up the rings situation. But with no further ado, I want to know exactly what happened during that game. Mike Pontisaco.
This game was one of the best games of the week. You had Darrelle Revis shutting down Vincent Jackson all day. Didn't hear anything about Vincent Jackson. I don't even think his name was mentioned once. John, I'm going to point that on you because you were thinking Vincent Jackson was going to go off. And I told him he wasn't. He got shut down. And a large part of that is because of Phillip Rivers. This dude, I think he's overrated, personally. I don't think he's ever going to win a Super Bowl with the Chargers. He's the next Dan Marino. We'll get into that a little later on in the segment. Phillip Rivers only managed to have 179 yards passing. He was 16 for 32. The Jets defense stymied him all day. Thankfully, the Chargers did have Antonio Gates back, which I know a lot of you fantasy owners were excited about. He found the end zone on his first game back, and he looks like he's ready to take over once again for the Chargers. I think we can all say he's the best target on the team, hands down, when healthy. So that was good to see. Also, the injury bug was all around the NFL, and this game was not an exception. You had Sean Green leave the game in the second quarter with a knee injury, and also Ryan Matthews left with a thumb injury. The status for both of them is up in the air. We'll get into that a little later on, but it's something that you definitely need to keep your eye on if you have either of them on your team. And just lastly, I just want to say Darrelle Revis, best cornerback in the game, hands down. It pains me to say it as a Patriots fan, but this dude shut down Vincent Jackson. He shuts down the big names on a week-to-week basis. And if it wasn't for him, the Jets wouldn't have 2 wins right now. That's the way I see it.
All right, go on to the next 2-minute drill. John, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
All right.
I'm so ready.
I'm going to throw this one at you since it seems to be a preferred player of your...
Oh, I already know where this is going.
You can't say what I think.
Tim Tebow finally got a start, and to boot, it was against the bottom-feeding Miami Dolphins. Now, you would think this would be smooth sailing for Mr. Tebow, but was it? John, why don't you tell us a little bit about that game?
All right, I honestly, I wanted to talk about that San Diego Jets game, but you know what? I actually want to talk about this game more. Honestly, first of all, I have to say this. I just made a bold prediction that Tebow could possibly become the starter. I never said I liked Tebow. My thing on Tebow we can get on later on in the program maybe. But getting to this game in particular, it's not like Tebow did anything. I mean, he had a fourth quarter comeback, which, it's somewhat special, but that's all he's been doing. And honestly, Miami had a huge choke, is my point about this game. Miami choked big time. They had 15 points on the board in this game. And in the fourth quarter, 18 unanswered points, including 3 overtime points, which doesn't even count towards Tebow. But Tebow, he did okay. Not yards-wise, but fantasy-wise, he did great. He had 2 TDs. You guys probably woke up with a smile. And Tebow, if you picked him up on the wire, was great. Matt Moore, he didn't have a terrible game. He's just, right now, honestly, the Miami Dolphins should tank their season. And a guy we can get into later is Demaryius Thomas. I want to talk about this guy later on in the program because he had what could be considered, in most eyes, in fantasy leagues, a good game. He had a touchdown, which gives you at least 7 points. And he gets at least 20, well, not 20, but he gets at least a couple extra points for the yardage. You also had Danny Fells, who had a good game. And it looks like maybe if Tebow builds some chemistry with these guys, then, these guys will do well and Tebow could do well. But right now, I'm not sold on Tebow.
You know what? Let me just say, I know these fans in Denver, when he was coming back, had a flashback to the drive. Don't act like you didn't. I know you guys are thinking it.
Alright.
You've been wanting Tebow in the lineup, and he won you a game in the fourth quarter. That's all you want out of your QB.
I just want to make one last point about the Dolphins. Right now, the way the Dolphins season is going, guys, I know there's a guy that shops in my store. He's on the same page with me. I think you guys should tank the rest of the season. I think you should fire Sperano and make that play for Andrew Luck because he could be your answer. That's what I have to say about that.
Alright, I'll stop it right there, John. Another pretty accurate description of what happened this weekend against
Yeah,
the Dolphins against the Broncos, you know. I'm feeling we'll be hearing a little bit more about Mr. Tebow later on.
We'll see.
We'll see. But that concludes a little shortened version of our 2-minute drill. We'll be back to full strength next week. But the show must go on, and let's go on to probably the most surprising little aspect of today's show is that we got a fan question. We hope to get more, keep them coming, but we got a fan question. And now getting on to the fan question. I want to give a shout out to Calvin Chang. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Calvin.
We hope you hit us up for more. Your question was fair trade value for Jeremiah Finley. Now I'm just going to suggest something before we get into it. Maybe give us an idea of who you're trying to get, what position you're trying to get, how your team is made up, so we can go further into it. But nonetheless, we got you, Calvin, and anybody else with questions. And I'm going to let John start off.
Yeah, if you're happening to look for a quarterback for Jeremiah Finley, in regards to your question, Calvin, I just want to make a point that if you're trying to go for just something simple in terms of your quarterback, if you have someone on the bench or an elite quarterback in general, then I don't know if you guys agree with this. You can easily send Jeremiah Finley for a viable quarterback like John Beck or maybe even a Matt Castle. The way that Matt Castle's been playing, he only had one good game too in comparison to Michael Finley. Now, if you need an elite quarterback, you're going to have to package him because you're going to have to, if you want to reach, then the other owner's going to want to have to reach too or get at least something worth his value for getting rid of Aaron Rodgers, for example, or Drew Brees. But that's just my opinion on a quarterback if you need to take a quarterback out.
All right, so if you're looking for a receiver, a couple of names out there that I think you might be able to scoop up and have them perform for you down the stretch. Brandon Marshall out of Miami. He hasn't really put up Brandon Marshall type numbers this season, so he's a guy that you could possibly buy low on and have him explode for you for like the remainder of the season. Another name, if you're looking for a receiver that I think you might be able to get, and I think it's fair trade value for Jeremiah Finley in a straight up 1-for-1 deal, AJ Green out of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's turning into a potential #1 receiver. But if you're dealing with an owner who has a lot of depth at the receiver position, I think you might be able to get AJ Green straight up for Finley, put him in your starting lineup, and you'll be good for the rest of the season.
Now, Calvin, if you're looking for a running back, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. There aren't many options out there that go blow for blow with Jeremiah Finley, but I am going to throw a name out there for you, and that's Sean Green. Sean Green not performing to the level that many of us thought he would at the beginning of the season. Nonetheless, he's productive. Has the Daniel Thomason, who seems to be getting now more of the carries, being more featured in the offense. And if you look at Finley in the Green Bay, it's almost the same situation where Finley is capable, but there's so many options out there for Rodgers to throw to. And he's just getting overlooked other than that one game where he had 3 touchdowns. I'm going to say Sean Green's a fair trade. If you want to dig a little bit deeper with the injury to Hightower, maybe Roy Halou out of Washington Redskins could be an even trade. And then again, you could package him with somebody else on your team. Wish I had your roster in front of me. I'd help you out a little bit more, but maybe a package deal for an elite running back. We'll see how it goes. Calvin, be in touch with us, buddy. We got you.
Thanks for the question, man.
Always.
Keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming.
To our general audience, always email us.
All right, guys, we're getting on to the next segment of the show, the superstars of the week.
Yes.
You know, the headliners, the top performers of this Sunday's football.
Yes.
And also, with the top, you got to take the bottom. The guys who didn't perform.
Bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, the bottom of the barrel. The guys who made you frown Monday morning when you looked at your fantasy team.
Oh, believe me.
So we're going to start with Mike. Mike, why don't you give us...
Well, I'm not going to go with the obvious name here, the rookie out of Dallas. I'll let John go into detail about that. I'm going to give you someone that you know, was kind of under the radar going into this week. Someone that you might have not have even had on your team. Plaxico Burress. Now, I know the yardage numbers aren't going to impress you. Only 25 yards. But he turned into that red zone target for Mark Sanchez with a record 3 TDs. He wasn't shooting himself in the foot. He was catching TDs. This dude looks like he's back on track. Look for him to be a red zone target going on in the rest of the season.
I love how you just mentioned he wasn't shooting himself in the foot.
Wasn't shooting himself in the foot.
I love it.
Yeah.
I know you want me so badly to mention the rookie out of Dallas, but I'm going to leave that for you because you seem more pumped up to talk about. I want to talk about a different guy, someone who all around was the best running back.
Oh, okay. All right.
Arian Foster. Yeah, I don't know if you watched the Houston game at all, but by far, I would say Arian Foster is the most all-around best back by far in any of the top 5 running back categories for this week. And he received 5 times for 119 yards, which is just amazing in general. It's a running back. He's not a wide receiver by trade, he's a running back. But his rushing yards were just as similar. I mean, he only got a TD receiving, but he got two TDs rushing, and he rushed for 115 yards. All around, just talking about a guy who, I mean, I don't know how the rest of the season goes, but he is just fantasy owners. You guys, I would love to trade for Arian Foster. Is what I'm saying.
Arian Foster's incredible, but he hasn't rushed for 253 yards like DeMarco Murray just did. He just set a Cowboys rookie record, surpassing Emmitt Smith, Hall of Famer, and Tony Dorsett, Hall of Famer. You can't sneeze at those numbers, you know. Felix Jones isn't really the healthiest right now. Tashard Choice isn't really that healthy either. It looks like DeMarco Murray is putting his name in the hat and is going to let Jason Garrett pick it out for next week. Watch him to be the starter for next week, possibly going forward for the rest of the season. This kid had a great, unbelievable game on a big stage in Dallas in front of his home fans. Watch out for DeMarco Murray.
Now let me just intervene for a second. Is that a bold statement, Mike? Is Murray going to be the starter?
Unlike last week, with my bold prediction, this one is going to be accurate. DeMarco Murray is going to be the starter for the boys for the rest of the season. You can't make him ride the pine after putting up 253 yards in one game.
I like it because I picked him up.
Alright, I just got one more name I want to mention. A guy who's really kind of been under the radar a lot this season that we really never talked about. As a matter of fact, I'm talking about Mr. Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers seem to be finding that groove that they always find every year around this time, where they start really having a nice winning streak. They coast right into the playoffs, and they always do a lot of damage. In this particular game, he went 26 for 39. That's a pretty good completion percentage in general. He had 341 yards and 3 TDs. He was right up there. Actually, he was up there as the #1 quarterback this week, surpassing Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees by yards. Obviously not by touchdowns, as we witnessed last night with Drew Brees, guys. 62 points. What is this, a Madden game?
That's Aaron Rodgers territory.
Not to get off the subject, but what was that, a Madden or like a college game?
That was a Madden game for real.
Yeah.
No one puts up that many points in a game.
He might start finding Hines Ward, I hope, and other fantasy owners. We are praying together that Hines Ward comes through at some point. But Ben Roethlisberger has to go into this discussion now because he's just doing really well.
I like that. I like. There's no denying that his numbers are good. I personally just don't like to see him play. I'm not a Steelers fan. It's sloppy offensive football, but it's effective. Hey, gonna get your points. That's going to conclude our top performers. But I like to throw in one name who I always throw in every week. Can't forget about Megatron.
Yes!
They lost.
Megatron!
His 10th touchdown of the season. Give it up for him.
Yes.
Alright, now we're going to go into the bottom feeders, the ones that maybe lost you a few games, like some of my teams. But
I think we're going to name him too.
you guys might name him, and I'm going to let John kick this one off. Give us the bottom feeders.
Speaking of Johnsons, I want to bring up a particular Johnson. Going back to the Houston, Tennessee game, looks like I was high on talking about that today. But Chris Johnson.
Disappointing.
Bottom of the barrel. Honestly, Chris Johnson, we knew this was going to happen, and I really hate to, you know, be repetitive in stating that he wasn't going to have a good season, but in all honesty, he's not having a good season. And he didn't do any damage yesterday. I mean, Javon Ringer had better yards, not even by much, but Chris Johnson had 10 carries for 18 yards, amusing 18 yards. And it's hurting the tight ends too at the same time, because Hasselbeck is not performing, because he doesn't have a balance at all. And obviously he has no Kenny Britt to work with. So right now, Tennessee, I don't know about them at the moment. Chris Johnson has to start showing up from now on at this point in the season.
Yeah, Tennessee is now in a tough situation with that huge contract. Moving on.
There were a lot of players who disappointed this week, but for me personally, no one disappointed more than Phillip Rivers. 16 for 32, 179 yards, and 1 TD. This guy is supposed to be an elite QB, a top 5 QB. And granted, he'll get you a few games here or there that are unbelievable. Maybe not in the Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, 60 to 50 point category, but 40, 35 points easily. This dude came out and he underperformed against the Jets. They needed the win. It was a big game for him. And once again, in a big game, Phillip Rivers did not come through.
I just have one more name. I hate to state the obvious on this, but I just looked at the stats of that Colts and Saints game. Again, I looked it over. And, you know, a guy who I'm now officially really done with. I know you told me, don't drop him, don't drop him. But honestly, Dallas Clark, I'm through with that. Like, I've drafted tight ends here and here. They've always brought me good luck. Vernon Davis last year, Antonio Gates in another league. But I've never drafted Dallas Clark, and I've heard good things about him. But I know the Colts are struggling a lot, and they're having a lot of trouble. But Dallas Clark needs to show up. Like, it looks like Dallas Clark either doesn't care or it's a bad situation for him.
If I might just intervene for a second, Dallas Clark's a player, Reggie Wayne's a player, Pierre Garçon's a player. Not going to blame it totally on them. They do belong in the bottom feeders.
Yes.
But with the asterisk next to the name, with Peyton Manning's name right next to it, because Peyton Manning's not there, the whole offense crumbles. Now, the blame's not squarely on them as players, but fantasy-wise, yes, the bottom feeders probably don't belong on a starting roster spot, on your team. Mike?
Just before I go into my other name, just to touch on the Clark situation. With Curtis Painter at QB, they're having him do a lot more blocking now than going out for routes. He's not catching passes because he has to protect Painter.
Yeah.
So if you can trade him, and get something for him, do it. I definitely agree with you. He's not
Calvin, don't trade for Dallas Clark.
Don't trade for Dallas Clark.
Please
no,
don't.
that's a step down. That's a step down. But another name I want to mention is a young receiver who, for a few weeks, was the hot name on the waiver wire. Doug Baldwin. Goose egg. 0 receptions, 0 targets versus the Cleveland Browns. This guy didn't come through in a game that I thought would definitely be more high scoring than 6-3. I don't know about you
Hey,
guys.
speaking of that game, guess who else didn't really show up? Greg Little. Mentioned
my boy. My boy.
Can I call you out on something real quick?
Go for it.
You called Colt McCoy the next Brett Favre a gunslinger?
He's a gunslinger.
No.
I never meant he was going to have the
on
numbers. I just meant he loves to throw the ball.
Okay, all right.
That's
I just
all
wanted
I meant.
clarification on it.
Fair enough. Throwing a few names out there. Reggie Bush, Daniel Thomas.
Yes.
They're in a horrible situation in Miami. They don't know which way to go. I mean, they gave up a lead to Tim Tebow.
Yes.
Tebow.
Who they honored before the game.
And who they bought tickets so that the stadium wouldn't be empty.
Yeah. Again, Mike touched on this a little bit earlier on the show about injuries hitting everybody. Nobody excluded. I mean, there was some big injuries this week, which is going to make a very, very interesting waiver wire for all you fantasy owners out there. So let's not even delay the process anymore. These people want to know who to pick up because they're starting in some position here is injured. Mike, take it away.
You know what? I'm gonna take it away right now. I got a lot of great names for you. Now I know some of you are worried because you lost Darren McFadden, you lost Beanie Wells, Santana Moss, just to name a few. But don't worry, because there's plenty of players on the waiver wire that you can pick up to fill in for them. First of all, with McFadden, you got his backup, Michael Bush. He's available in a lot of leagues with McFadden's injury status up in the air. Michael Bush is definitely someone that you can pick up and ride out with. He had 99 yards in place of McFadden against the Kansas City Chiefs. Definitely worth picking up, definitely worth starting.
Especially with the running back situation being so thin, because everybody, including me, is going to pick up Michael Bush and steal him from the league.
I like it.
Looking at injuries, as we're talking, there's a certain Johnny Best who is out, concussion, and we all know how concussions go. And unfortunately for the NFL, they go a little better than hockey. So, but getting back to the waiver wire pickup, that could be a viable, not a long-term replacement, guys, but just a viable back until Best gets back to 100%. If you need a handcuff, Maurice Mars, he's always proved to be viable in those situations.
I know a lot of you have Matthew Stafford. Now, he left the game early against the Falcons, and it was reported that afterwards he was seen in a walking boot, and he's going to be having an MRI on both of his knees and his ankle either today or tomorrow. So, if I was a Matthew Stafford owner, I wouldn't be too optimistic about his status for next week, and I would go out and pick up Andy Dalton. Yeah. He might not be available anymore. We've been hyping him up for a couple of weeks, but in some leagues he is available. Definitely pick him up.
Oh, look at this name. All right, I mentioned him. I got to talk about the game, Denver, Miami. So I'm gonna bring up this name again. I think you guys need to pay attention to Demaryius Thomas. I have been hearing a lot of rumors that he could become very, 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 very connected with Tebow. There's a good chance that these two might have that chemistry that, you know, Brandon Lloyd obviously lacked with Tebow and Gordon this year.
I'll actually bring this back to you, Calvin, if you're watching still. Daniel Fells, tight end.
Oh.
Seems to be finding some sort of a rhythm with Tebow. I mean, only 2 catches, but one was a really big catch at the end of the game, and the other was a touchdown. So keep him in mind. Now, you might be sitting there confused. Maybe a player's on your bench, you're not too sure that you want to start. Maybe there's a player on your starting that you might want to bench, but you don't know. That's why these guys are here. The start 'em and sit 'em segment of the week. Mike, let's kick it off.
We're going to give you the answers for this upcoming week, guys. I'm going to take the start 'em category, and I got a couple of names for you. Marcus Colston and Jimmy Graham. In the last 2 weeks, this dynamic duo has combined for 27 receptions, 394 yards, and 5 TDs. Jimmy Graham last week against the Colts, his 2 TD passes came from 4 and 2 yards out. What does that show you? It shows you that when they get into the red zone, they're looking for Jimmy Graham. Another name for you? Actually, you know what? All I can say about this guy is Ocho Cinco. Who? AJ Green is taking over Cincinnati. He's had everyone in there saying, I don't even remember Ocho Cinco, and the Patriots are saying the same thing because we haven't seen anything from it all. We haven't seen anything from it at all season. Another name, Fred Jackson. I mean, come on. He's the focal point of the Bills offense. If you were going to start anyone from the Bills, it would have to be Fred Jackson. The only time you sit this guy is on his bye week. He didn't come off of a great game against the Texans last week. Matt Hasselbeck. He's going up against the Colts. Drew Brees just put up 62 points against the Colts. He's not going to give you 5 TD passes. Let me just say that now. Matt Hasselbeck isn't going to give you 5 TDs. So don't go starting and thinking he's going to get you 40, 50 points.
He'll give you 44 points. I got some sit-ups. It's going to be some obvious names, so, you know, don't look for any surprises. First tandem of names that I want to mention, as he mentioned with Matt Hasselbeck, nice transition. Reggie Wayne and Dallas Clark versus the Titans, and you know, like you just said, Colts, they're just awful. I just give up on the Colts. I can't wait till they come to New England or we go to that. You think that Drew Brees is gonna do damage? Watch when Brady gets his hands on.
He might get
100 points. Oh my God. Beanie Wells is injured, so I'm not gonna mention him. He's an obvious sit-up because he's injured. Another sit-up I do want to mention though is Larry Fitzgerald. You guys know who they're going up against this coming week?
Who is it? Tell us, John. Tell us.
They're going up against right now the AFC team one of the AFC teams to beat the Baltimore Ravens. If you think Larry Fitzgerald's going to get production, you're talking about Ed Reed, and you're talking about that whole backfield in general.
Ray Lewis, Terrell
and
Suggs.
not only that, you're talking about Kevin Cole against Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis.
Did somebody check Ray Lewis's birth certificate? 'Cause I don't think he's as old as they're advertising. That dude's still making plays.
He plays young.
God, just treat him right every so often for fantasy. But clearly there's no number 2 right now in Arizona, and that means Fitzgerald's going to be relied upon to do all the work. And guess who's going to be covering Fitzgerald? None other than Ed Reed. Say hi to the Reed wall.
And without no Beanie Wells, no running game.
No run game. It's going to be forced on Cole to pass. So don't start Larry Fitzgerald. Thanks, because now I'm not going to be starting Larry Fitzgerald. Another name, Brandon Marshall. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm just gonna I'm just putting this away.
No notes.
I'm just gonna say this.
Oh.
Don't start any single Dolphins player. I don't need a reason. I don't need a reason. Avoid Seattle. I've been saying this all season. Avoid Seattle. And people, I mean, I'm not down with it anymore because Seattle is a wash.
Well, they don't have a quarterback. They're using Charlie Whitehurst.
You know, it's such a shame that San Francisco is going to take over that division so easily.
Next week we'll give you the same option. It's a machine here at Extreme Fantasy.
It's
We're just going to keep pumping the facts out. If you choose to follow it, follow it. If not, you don't.
Just to show you guys the depth of our knowledge here on the panel. Alfonso Smith. Beanie Wells is out for 1 to 2 weeks.
Woo!
And, you know, given his injury history, who knows if it's going to be longer than that.
Now, folks, it's that time. I have no other choice than to bring you guys to the epitome of this show.
Hide your kids.
Hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband, because
you could YouTube the rest.
Yeah.
But we're going to get right into Smack Talk. Now, because we're down a panelist today, we're going to do it a little bit different today. I'm going to throw 3 random subjects out there. These guys have no idea what I'm going to say, and they're going to battle it out. In Smack Talk.
John, you don't got me.
I
got you. I got you. I don't even need my notes. Turn the notes upside down. Off the dome right
This is
now.
going to be off the dome.
Let's go.
I want to know what you guys think about some hot topics right now in football. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm going to put the ball in the middle.
Whoever gets it first? All right, let's go.
Family Feud. Well,
Leaning towards me.
Many Falcons are coming out today and making it public that Detroit Lions defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh taunted and applauded the brief injury to Matt Ryan, screaming for the Falcons sideline to bring out the cart. He was finished. He didn't want any more. Now, due to some roughing the passer penalties, some fines in the preseason and in that season's past, 1 season past, as a second-year player, and due to his intensity, his loud mouth, and his overall swagger, this second-year monster is getting a rep around the league as being over the line, consistently stepping over the line and being dirty. Is this fair, or is he just getting a bad rep for being very intense?
I know I stole that. I know I stole that early.
Totally were on that.
I apologize to you, John. I know you got some great points to make.
Make your point.
Before I get started, I would want Suh on my team any day of the week. He's gonna be.
Got a love fest.
I got a love fest for Suh. If he was on the Patriots, we'd be winning Super Bowls all day.
Oh, yeah.
But with that being said, if he was on the Patriots, I don't think he would have the same dirty player persona. I think that's a product of the coach that he plays for. We all saw what Jim Schwartz did to Jim Harbaugh last week. It was dirty how he treated the coach, how he was acting towards the coach. And when I see Suh making these plays, I think it's a reflection of the coaching staff. You put him with Belichick, does he have the same reputation? No, because Belichick, with Rodney Harrison, checks egos at the door. Jim Schwartz thrives off that. He wants his team to play like that, to play that intense, because it intimidates the other teams that they go up against. That's my opinion. Sure.
Okay, well, to answer the question directly, why make a judgment on a guy who's playing football and is just carrying his pride into every game, his enthusiasm into every game, and his momentum and his swagger into every game? Isn't that what part of the game of football is about, his swagger? Like, first of all, let's look at Suh for a minute. has he ever had any off-season issues ever so far?
Just regular season issues, that's it.
Yeah, so just regular season issues, just like James Harrison. Now, with that point being said, what's wrong with displaying your pride for showing your momentum that your team wants to carry all season long?
Hold on.
Let me just say something.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with displaying pride. There's nothing wrong with a little trash talk. But applauding an injury, that's just getting brought to the front of the line.
That's a different story.
Here's even a better. Here's a question that's spurred out of the question. When you play in the trenches, no doubt it's a nasty, dirty game. It's a lot of touching, grabbing, spitting, farting, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of stuff going on in those trenches that is ugly. Now, is there a moral line that every player should abide to? Like not applauding the injury, not making it seem like you're intentionally out there to hurt.
Well, okay, if you're intentionally out there to hurt, I think that's wrong. I draw the line on that. Now, was Sue intentionally out to hurt? Well, we might never really know the true answer to that question.
He's declined to comment to the Falcons.
Yeah, so maybe there's a chance that he did intentionally do it. And, you know, the thing is, some players are like that. And whether it's fair or not, it's just, we're sitting here and we're making a judgment on a guy who goes in, game out. Yes, he's taunting. Yes, he's applauding injury, which is bad. But he's also going out there and he's just playing football. He's just playing football. He's earning, like, unlike some people, Chris Johnson, he's earning his money. And whether it's fair or not, I just think that we shouldn't be, like, as long as we're not making a harsh judgment on it, I think applauding an injury is wrong. Is it fair to sit here and judge him? No.
First of all, just taking all of what you said in, he's a great player. He plays in the trenches. He's a tough player. He's an intense player. But applauding an injury, that's inhuman. Who does that?
I think that's cruel.
Who does that? You know, like, I feel like he's a young, immature player right now. And, you know, maybe later on in his career, he'll tone it down a little bit. He does have a lot of swagger. He brings a lot of attitude onto the field, and he might not know how to keep it in line, how to keep it in check. I definitely don't think the whole Atlanta Falcons team was lying. I think it definitely happened. I think he definitely was rooting for an injury or was calling the card out. I don't know exactly what he said, but I think it's offensive. A part of it is because of the coach and the mentality, the atmosphere in that locker room. I think sports allows that to happen.
I'm just gonna end this second question off with a little bit of insight that I've researched. A lot of people around the league, a lot of different analysts, a lot of different coaches around the league who are observing this very same situation. Kind of give them blame that the new collective bargaining agreement restricts teams to only, I believe it's 11 full contact practices throughout the season. Now, when you're a defensive tackle, and you're out there, and your main job is to hit, to move bodies out of the way, to get to the quarterback, you might have a lot of tension built up when game day comes. Maybe it's a little undisciplined from Sue. Maybe it's a little bit of his immatureness being a second-year player. Maybe, Mike, it is a coach. Maybe it does trickle down from the top, but the fact that remains, you gotta respect the opponent, even if you don't like him. You gotta respect him. You can't applaud or mock an injury or mock a down player. That's just not right. I appreciate his intensity. I don't like the whole thing about the injury, though. Great player, just tone it down, control your emotions. That brings us, unfortunately, to the end of a very exciting, very deep, very controversial, lots of opinions and facts thrown around. Once again, I want to thank Mike, I want to thank JR for offering their insight. Next week we'll be at the same time, same place.
Halloween!
Your viewing pleasure.
Halloween! Get dressed up, people. We're doing it.
And as always, I want to give one more shout out to our question, Calvin again, for hitting us off with a question. As always, just in case you guys don't get it, you can get us on Gmail. That's our email, email, extremefantasyjunkies@gmail.com.
Calvin, good.
Calvin, we want more from you and want more from everybody else who watches these shows.
Bring it.
You can get us at Twitter at extremefantasyj. That's the Twitter name, you know, hit us up on Twitter. We got the YouTube videos, which you're probably viewing us now on, but you already know it's Extreme Fantasy Junkies. Search that on the search, you know, you can come up, you can get our channel, watch all our episodes, see how awesome we are.
That's right, that's right.
And you can get us, search for us on Facebook, of course, Extreme Fantasy Junkies. We'll be all over Facebook. I'm telling you, join the movement. We're doing things. You know, some of our predictions are wrong, but most of them are right. This show rocks, and that's Jeff saying, I told you so. Have a good week, and I'll see you next Monday, guys.
All right, all right.
All right.